Subscribe to this podcast to get exclusive access to the after show Shooting the Breeze. So today we have author Mary Kay, is it Savarese? Is that how we pronounce your last name?
Savarese, yes.
And she has written a couple of books that we'll end up talking about. But first, why don't we get you to start out just by telling us who you are and a little bit about what you do?
Well, it's a pleasure to be here with you, Tony, and your wonderful audience. I am a traditionally published fiction author, and I love to write with quirky titles, and I write for the Christian marketplace, which is very important for me. And I know to many of the readers out there and to your audience. And I was born in Brooklyn, New York, and I've moved several places, mostly in the New England part of the United States. And now I live in sunny Florida, and where it's just getting to be a bit humid.
Yeah, Florida. I've always wanted to go to Florida. So that's something that is a dream of mine to end up going there. But
we would welcome you with open arms. Many Canadians spend their winters here.
Yeah. I do some work with telecommunications on this as my main job, and we deal with a lot of people that we call snowbirds.
Yes.
So why don't you tell us your testimony and what God is currently doing in your life?
What I am so thrilled about is that we each have a path in life, and He truly has a plan for us. And the plan that I truly believe He has put me on is to write for Him, to glorify Him with my fiction stories. And that is what excites me very much. And at the same time, He has given me great joy in the fact that He's given me this wonderful gift. And what I mean, great joy is, we always say God helps us through the most difficult times in our life. Well, for me, writing did help me through some very difficult times when I was dealing with very severe anxiety, and my writing would just help me focus and stay on track and just help me through that time. So I truly believe each one of us does have that blessing from Jesus Christ, our Savior, our God, that He has given us a path. And the other most important thing is He won't let us down. Obviously, what we have are, right? It's that roller coaster. There are days I just want to say, maybe I can't do this anymore. But then that's here. And then the next day, we're back up to here. And He's with us that whole time. Because listen, if everything was so simple and easy, it's called heaven. And we're not there yet, right? Yeah. And then we would be bored. But and He's with us every minute of our lives. So that is my testimony, is to never give up, like He never gives up on us.
Yeah, that's a very important message, that never giving up, because and writing for me has always been such a blessing for me to be able to use and just pour my heart into it. And I've been actually blessed through these that I'm getting to work with some musicians now in terms of with my music. Mm-hmm. So that's really exciting for me to get to start a bit of a new project for me, and it's wonderful how God gives us those opportunities.
Yes.
So you say you are a Eucharist minister.
Yes.
So I did a little bit of research to see what that was, but for my listeners who don't know what that is, can you explain a little bit about what that means?
Yes. I was raised a Catholic, and as a Catholic, this is terrible to say, but it's so true. We pick and choose. Where they call us the cafeteria people, the Catholics. Okay, I'm going to do this, but I won't do that. So in my Catholic faith, I've been there. I was raised in a very strict Catholic household. So when I did leave for college, I did step away because I just, okay, it's too much already. But something always drew me back, and it was always that much better. And in the Catholic faith, what a Eucharistic minister does, it's a ministry of love. We have many ministries, but it is on a volunteer basis. We're not paid. So in the most simplest terms, at Masses, we assist the priest in handing out the Holy Eucharist. And we can help the priest in any other ways with our congregation. But one of the most wonderful things that I enjoy in being a Eucharistic minister is going to nursing homes. And that has given me so much joy because they welcome you with open arms, and the lifelong friendships that I've had. Unfortunately, you know, as yourself through COVID, I mean, these nursing homes were closed and we lost a lot of the people. They're much older in the nursing homes. Some, yes, to COVID, but some just through just their age and natural causes or other afflictions they were dealing with. But that to me was just the most wonderful part, was bringing them the Holy Communion and sharing time with them in the nursing home.
They have such wonderful stories to share too. I just, it's really, really interesting listening to all the different things that they've seen in their lives, like the elderly. So I think that is wonderful. As an author, what inspired you to get into writing?
Well, you know, I've always had all these ideas that I said someday I would love to put them on paper. But getting married, raising a family, working, volunteering, everything went on that back burner. And finally, at the point where I have 3 children, the oldest was starting to look at colleges and she had gone off, I finally said, I have to prove to myself I can sit down and bring all of these ideas. I love to write in fiction, and I love to write in a fantasy world or something regarding mystery and adventure. And that was the first task, was to sit down. And I'm an overnight success, a 10-year overnight success. It took me, my goal was to be traditionally published. And it took me over 10 years, rejection after rejection. Right? And you have to build a thick skin. And finally, it was over 10 years, and I was approaching a big birthday. And I have a lot of patience, and this was my passion. I loved what I was doing. And I was angry, and I turned to God. And I remember being in my Catholic church, and I said, God, how much longer do I have to wait? Rejection after rejection. This is continuous. I have no more patience. And God is funny, because a contract came in. And it was my first contract. So he said, see, I told you, just have faith in me and it will happen. And that is the absolute, I mean, it's a gem for me to share that with anybody, that after I said that, I had just lost patience with God, and that contract came in like immediately after that.
Yeah. God knows He's got His time, and we don't always understand the waiting, but I think it prepares us oftentimes more than we realize.
And those are the things I think, you know, we have to have patience, but divine, you know, we hear about divine intervention. And the other thing that I would be reading something, a magazine, and you know what was always popping up for me? Divine timing. It was, Mary, just hang in there, but it's going to be on the time, God's time, not your time.
Yeah, that's exactly what I found with the podcast even and stuff. I started out doing devotions, then I asked God about doing interviews. I did one interview, and then all of a sudden it like flooded into me doing 5 or 6 a week and being booked up solid all the way into August now. So it's been a roller coaster, and God just, you know, He's just taught me, you know, in my time, I give you things. That's exactly it. You've also won some awards in your writing. Why don't you tell
Yes.
us about that?
Oh, you know what? I am so thrilled and I'm so humbled because it is very important. I was told as an author, once you do get to that point where your book is published, you then try to get reviews. And those reviews can be wonderful, they can be terrible. And the other thing you are told that it's necessary is to submit your book for an award. And that goes, and you're in wonderful company because other authors who are exceptional and their work is exceptional are doing the same thing. And you are up against them. And the people that review these books are, I mean, just top notch. And they are looking. And I'm always told from my editor, can't do that because the reviewer will kill you. You won't get an award. And so my first book, and as I said, when I was introduced, I am known as an author who loves to write with quirky titles. My first book, which is a mystery romance intertwined with with spiritual or the supernatural, but a spiritual twist. And that book, Tigers Love Bubble Baths and Obsession Perfume, who knew? There's a whole story behind that title, won 8 awards. And I am so thrilled and humbled. My second book, which is the first of a trilogy, and the title of the first book is The Girl in the Toile Wallpaper. It is a fantasy adventure intertwined with romance. That has won for cover so far, and just recently we've been submitting because it was published at the end of 2021, so you have to wait until 2022 to submit. That, I just received this a week and a half ago. I am so humbled. It is a finalist for first place or the grand prize with Chanticleer International Book Awards. So I won't know that until the month of July when they make that announcement. And June. It's June. So I am very, very thrilled to be amongst company of some incredible authors. So thank you for asking that.
Well, that process is definitely, there's a lot of work that goes into that. I know, and editors are great. When I did my first book, they made me change the beginning of my book just because they're like, well, in order to catch the reader a little bit more, how about we put this part in there? And so definitely listening to them during that whole process, they know.
Yeah, I truly feel, and again, I had, through my whole journey of wanting to be a published author, I prayed and I continue to pray because I write for his glory. And I want to praise him with my writing. And I write for the Christian marketplace. But I also believe we are truly supposed to be evangelists. And what that means is I want to reach the people beyond the Christian marketplace. I want to reach others through my writing. And that's where I believe we are here to evangelize and to spread his word. And that's how I believe that I am doing his work, is through my writing.
Yeah, exactly. The Great Commission. I think that's something we always have to keep in our mind is that the final part of Matthew, just telling us we got to be spread the gospel to the masses. And I definitely. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your first book there, the Tigers Love Bubble Baths and Obsession Perfume. Who knew? Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. Okay. That I think the most important thing about that is to begin with how that title originated. I had visited a wildlife reserve in St. Augustine, Florida, and it is a home for old big cats, tigers, lions, panthers, cougars that are brought there from maybe cable shows, TV shows, movies, even people who had them as pets. And at the end of my tour, I walked up to this vat overflowing with bubbles. And this vat was 15 feet wide, 5 feet high. I was behind a thin, a thin screen, and out walks this 600-pound Siberian tiger, saunters across the plank, jumps into this bubble bath, and the wildlife handler sprays obsession perfume on his tongue. And I was so mesmerized watching this, because this jungle creature just became so human. And I said, that's the title of my next book, Tigers Love Bubble Baths and Obsession Perfume, Who Knew? And it became a metaphor. And it became a metaphor for being tossed aside like an old shoe, just like these big cats are in this reserve. And my protagonist, Angie Pantera, after 25 years of marriage, was tossed aside like an old shoe by her husband. And again, I brought in my Catholic faith. And that's where it's not myself, but I bring in the background that I had growing up as a Catholic, leaving it, coming back, and God always bringing you back, and your life being a roller coaster, but he's always with you. And that's what my protagonist, my main character, Angie Pantera, experiences. She's always running away from God, but it's so much divine intervention that goes on. He's always bringing her back. So again, that's where the influence of my Catholic faith and all of these wonderful things. I said, I'm writing for not only the Catholic marketplace, but the Christian marketplace. And what I did was, at the time when I was writing the manuscript, there were some things that were changing within the Catholic Mass. Some of the ways we would begin reading some introductions. And I incorporated that into the story, because what we find nowadays is many Catholics are leaving the Catholic Church, and many young people, and we want to get them back, and they're not aware of some of these changes. So I was able to incorporate all of that within a fiction story.
Yeah, and definitely young people are leaving the church in great numbers, and it's very sad to see it. I've talked to other people about that on my show before, about how we deal with that, because it's not good that we're seeing a lot of them so out of touch with the church. And I think we need to focus on trying to get them back, like you say.
Yeah. Now, Tony, I'm not sure how it is in your area, but in my area, so I lived in Connecticut, outside of the capital, called Hartford. And I lived there for 30 years. So I literally have watched the church where everything was level. And then within the last 10, 12 years, we saw such a decrease in the memberships within these Catholic churches. They started to combine them. And what they had to do was, before, we were just supporting our own Catholic Church. We have dioceses. They have actually come in, and they've gone to the healthy, the strong churches, and they've asked that we do a little pooling of the money and contribute to help these other poorer churches so they can survive. Some of them, right? Some of them can't, and they need a new roof. And we're talking 20, 30,000, even more. And so that's what's happened in the Northeast. But I will tell you, pleasantly surprised moving to Florida several years ago, in the area that I live in, and I'm in Southern Florida on the East Coast. I am surrounded by many Catholic churches, newer churches that maybe have been built in the last 30, 40 years. So they look very contemporary, but they are filled. I mean, except for the time with COVID when they were closed, they are filled, not with just old people, because in Florida, you expect to see a lot of old people, families. So that just has warmed my heart that at least here it's still thriving. In the Northeast, we're on a downward slope, which is very, very sad for me.
Yeah. And going back to your books, start of your trilogy. Why don't you tell us about that book, and then where you see your trilogy going?
Oh, thank you so much. Yes, the first book in my trilogy. The trilogy is titled the Star Writers Trilogy, and the first book in the trilogy is The Girl in the Toile Wallpaper. Now, your audience may say, "What is toile?" Now, toile is very much an everyday item, although you may not call it toile. But what it is, it's very artistic wall covering or fabric. If I can just hold this up, you'll see. Yeah. So toile is something that tells a story, and it is so distinctive that it usually is two-toned, very vibrant. And I had this all over my house in Connecticut, so much so I would walk by this wallpaper and I would say, "Oh, I see mystery. I see love there. I see betrayal." And I said, I am going to write a story, a novel that is going to be, I love to write in fantasy adventure. And I am going to intertwine that with romance. And what I did in that writing was there is, I don't know if you're familiar with St. Patrick's, the breastplate, one of my favorite prayers. And I incorporated that into my novel as one of the characters. I introduced one of the characters. And what always bothered me, I'm thinking, okay, if this gets published someday, if they start fighting me on taking out that prayer, I'm going to fight tooth and nail to keep that in there. And well, they did, but they moved it around a bit. So it's actually beautifully done within the novel. So I'm very proud of that. And that was bringing the prayer into it. And again, it's I write for the Christian marketplace. So the reviews that came in basically say it's from young adults to older. And they compare it to Doctor Who, or they compare it to The Wrinkle in Time. Mine is written from a Christian perspective. And nowadays, sometimes in the publication world, you could be fought on that. But I have to honestly tell you, my stories have been welcomed with open arms. I am with small publishing houses, and they've been very wonderful, and they've worked with me. And the Tigers love bubble baths. There is quite a bit regarding the themes that take place, and it's a Christian theme, and they were wonderful to work with. So
that's great. And
yeah,
when can we expect your next installment in this series?
I am currently in the process of having the second book. I'm working with the editor on the second book, and that will come out at the end of the year. And then the following year, we begin editing the third one. So there'll be one out a year. And my books are everywhere, in any independent bookstore, Barnes and Noble, anywhere they sell books. It might not be on anybody on the shelf at the moment, but just give them my name and they can order it. And I have an author website. I have a site that I am so thrilled about, which is called the Star Writers Trilogy. And that is, we are trying to bring in the younger readers, because this is The Girl in the Toile Wallpaper. As I said, it's we're looking at teenagers and older. But you know that, I mean, kids nowadays, they read up. So yeah. I'm thrilled that this is a novel that parents do not have to worry about, or grandparents allowing their children to read. There is nothing in there that would be inappropriate for that age group, even 9 to 12, if they wanted to read up. And my other book, The Tigers Love Bubble Baths, that is more for 35, I would say, and upward.
Yeah, and it's nice and refreshing to have people writing stuff where it's like parents don't have to worry, because you do have to, even with movies and shows, we make sure we watch them before our kids watch them, because yeah, you never know what's in
And
there these days.
yeah, and that was really, I have to tell you, if you want to ask me, what was the impetus to actually start writing and putting the words on paper? It was in Connecticut, walking into, at the time, we had Borders, and they have since gone bankrupt. But it was very much like a Barnes and Nobles, and you have the Barnes and Nobles bookstores by you. Okay, so this was Borders at the time, just like a Barnes and Noble. And at that time, young adult was just becoming very popular, but they didn't really arrange it because you think, young adult's fine, a 12-year-old. My daughter picked, it was, young adult was just becoming popular. She picks up a book that we walked in, and I'm looking around. Well, she spent quite amount of time just looking through this book. And then I found out why, because it was geared, they were trying to push it for the 12-year-olds, but there was sex in it, there was drugs in it. And so it was very inappropriate for that age.
Yeah.
So, and I said to myself, I have a lot of stories that I think would be wonderful for the Christian marketplace and for these younger people as well.
So you also have your main website, marysavarese.com.
Yeah.
And we'll put that in the description so people can find you online there.
www.marysavarese.com. And yeah, please, you can contact me through that. We have trailers. I bring you to other things into it, and I do give away books once a month. So yeah, please contact me there.
Yeah, for sure. We'll put that in the description so people can find you, because that'll make it really, really easy for people to find you there. And what kind of hurdles and challenges did you face in the publishing industry? You talked about 10 years. So what were those hurdles and challenges in that process?
Oh, back then, we still had the snail mail. And actually publishers, even big publishing houses were still open to an up and coming writer. Those times have completely changed. So I went through that whole cycle and it was continuous, the rejection. So those were all the hurdles. Oh, you can write, but it's not what we're looking for. And there's one thing I can say, any budding writers out there, if you're chasing that latest trend, it's not going to happen, because by the time you get there, they've moved on to something else. Come up with some ideas that gives you passion, because if you have that passion, you're going to be able to write about it. So I always felt that was very important. But yeah, it was just one rejection after another. And then you think once you are finally published that, it's going to be much easier. Not necessarily, because again, they're chasing that latest trend, and what you're trying to push, they may not be interested in. So I ended up looking for another publisher, and at that point, the publishers want a series. So I said, I've got this one book. Okay, I can do a second and a third one off of that. So yeah, those are your challenges. And working with an editor, it's always a love-hate relationship. They are absolutely wonderful. They take the manuscripts that writers submit. It's not what you eventually open up in a novel, because it's gone through so many hands and through so many creative editing processes. But always love your editor, because they are there for you to make you shine. But it's tough, and it's very, very humbling when they're crossing out everything, as you know, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you got a lot that they take out, and then they suggest adding something else here, or you're missing something here. Yeah, there's definitely a lot to that process.
My whole book, one of my manuscripts was completely red, crossed out completely. It's like, okay, why did you even want to work with me to begin with?
Yeah. So how have you seen God at work throughout this whole writing process and your writing career?
Always. And I call it God's coincidences, because sometimes, you're at the point where you might want to give up on something, and then it's like it's a miracle that happens. And I love God's coincidences because it's just him always being there to help you through your life, through your joys, your, and your low moments and your sadness. So I think that I'm always encouraged by that, and I'm always in awe of when something like that happens, and people know what I mean by God's coincidence. Mm-hmm. Things like, like just for example, let's say you haven't seen this person, and all of a sudden they show up, and it's such like a wonderful reunion. It truly happens for a reason. So I call those God's coincidences, and that's helped me through my journey of writing. Where you have 50 million rejections, and you're ready to give up, and all of a sudden it only takes one person, and that person comes through and says, "Hey, we're interested." So.
Perfect. And so you you mentioned a little bit of advice, but what's some advice that you might have for young Christian authors out there who are trying to get in the market?
Yeah, young, middle-aged, older, seniors. I don't care what age you are. If you still have that passion in your heart, never give up, and never give up on yourself. Because we know everybody's out there to put you down, except for God. People will say, "You're not good enough. You're not this." You go like this, la, 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 la. And you just put your passion into it. And I can promise you, because it happened for me, not overnight, but I can promise you, if it is part of your soul, if it's part of who you are, this is your passion, stick with it, because it will happen. It may not be overnight, but it'll happen. And you'll be like me, you'll be, "God, when was this finally going to happen? I'm going to be 90 years old and I won't have a novel published."
Yeah. So thanks for that. Do you have any final thoughts you want to share with us before we sign off and head into the after show?
As I said, it's very important for me to pass this on to young people, because there's many times, and anybody, they can be so down on themselves, is to please never give up on yourself. You are the most important person. God has created you in his likeness, and he is always with you. So never give up on yourself.
Very important. And thank you for being on the show and sharing that with us, and look forward to discussing a little bit more with you in the after show.
Thank you.
Well, I have just been blessed with so many people who are requesting to be on the show, and I'm impressed with how many people want to share their testimonies or what they're doing for the Lord right now. If I haven't got back to you, I promise I will get back to you. I look forward to speaking with each of you and interviewing you, and keep tuning into the show. There's lots of new people that are coming on here, and if you're considering wanting to come on the show, just shoot me an email at tpeters745@gmail.com, and I will get back to you.